How are you going, guys? It is Josh from the Smashing Crossbar Podcast. I'm joined once again by Ben. How are you, mate?
How are we, lads?
Fabulous, mate. Fabulous. I do apologise, obviously, for the other day. Had a bit of a family emergency and had to go sort that out. Unfortunately, family comes first, so I do apologise for all that. We are in talks with Jason Colina to try and get him back on and have another chat with him.
Mate, I was all over it.
You were all over it. Thanks to Ben, obviously, for giving me a hand there and getting all the media and socials out and everything else. Hey, Chris, how are you, mate? Hey, Luke. But yeah, we're going to jump into it. Special thanks, obviously, before we start, to our major sponsor, obviously, Gabriel Mark, optometrist at Jesmond. Thanks to those guys. Be sure to go jump down there and see the guys at Gabriel Mark Optometry for any eye care needs. That's cute, mate. Little clap, love it. Yeah, the guys down there will help you out. Be sure to drop Crossbar Capers and Lockie will fix you up with a bit of a discount and so forth. So, muchly appreciated. Anyway, we're going to get straight into it with our special guest. I know it was at short notice, so I do appreciate him for jumping on. It's muchly appreciated. But we are lucky enough to have Karl Dodd. Played a few games, obviously, in the A League. Went over to Scotland. Now the national coach of Guam. So it'd be interesting to get a bit of insight into what Guam's up to these days, in compared to obviously the Socceroos facilities and obviously the junior setup and everything else. So muchly appreciated, mate. How you going, Carl?
How are we, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Muchly appreciated, mate. Thank you very much for jumping on at very short notice.
No worries.
How's COVID been treating you, mate?
Actually been good for me. I know it's not a good thing, but I've used it well. I come back from Guam in mid-March and actually got time, spent time with the wife who is pregnant for 25 weeks now, and we haven't been living in the same place for the last 2 years for various reasons, so it's been tough. So it's been a good time to, spend a lot of time together and reconnect. So it's been good. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Congratulations, obviously, for the soon-to-be father.
Yes.
I feel your pain there.
Oh, yeah.
Wife's just announced our second, 2 girls, so...
I've got 3.
Yeah.
You got 3, yeah.
I win.
Yeah, bugger that.
We've got first girl on the way, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
I just said to the grandparents and that, it's like, right, don't stress about presents or anything like that. Just put money away into a savings account for a wedding and their weddings and everything else. I'm not forking out for doubles if I don't have to. So, yeah. But yeah, so no, we're just gonna have you on. We'll have a bit of a talk about obviously your time from obviously your junior career, obviously up there in the top end. Believe it was all started at what was it, Palm Beach?
Palm Beach, mate.
Palm Beach, beautiful.
Yeah, what a place. Lived just around the corner, and a very successful club. We also become Gold Coast City or United when the State League started. But played there till I was 16, 17, and then left. But and was very lucky, I guess, to have us, finish up at that club in the NPL the last year I played to win the league and grand final. So it was a good send off, like very, very, nice swan song kind of thing.
Yeah.
Send off. But yes, at Palm Beach, being in Queensland, it's very tough. There was only one club in Queensland professionally, which was the Brisbane Strikers. So I think you just kind of keep battling away in the state leagues and then get your opportunity. And I got that opportunity, played. Well, I did my knee, actually had a knee reconstruction the first year that I signed, or was about to sign with the Strikers. So then spent that whole season rehabbing it and then come back and played the last season of the NSL and then did my other knee at the end of that season. And then we had that big 14-month break between the NSL and the A League, which big void, wasn't it? It was a bit boring. But I was, busy doing rehab and then come back into that, signed with the Brisbane Roar, Queensland Roar they were called back then. Then went overseas to Scotland, played there in the Scottish Premier League for a season or 2. Come back to Wellington, North Queensland Fury, then they just dissolved. And then, my knees were kind of gone towards that point. I was just trying to get as much as I could out of the game, playing-wise, enjoying it as much as I could before I retired. And I'd obviously started my studies at tertiary at college, human movement science, and that.
Yeah.
The view was always to move into coaching. Like I knew I wasn't going to be a Franz Beckenbauer, so it's pretty realistic. Look, let's just see how far and
Well, yeah.
how long we can go playing.
I was gonna say, mate. I was gonna say, bloody. Obviously, we'll go back to obviously your junior days. Obviously, I was gonna say, were you obviously the, standout, one of the standouts, obviously, in your junior career, or did you really have to?
Believe it or not, I was actually a late developer. I'm tall now, but wasn't the case when I was, young, 13. But I would not. You don't pump your own tires, but I was all right. At early ages, but I just didn't grow. And funnily enough, the Queensland football director David Bella was my rep coach back then, and I think the second or third year I was in reps, he didn't select me. He just said, not for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And now he's just finished up being the football Queensland director, which is it's interesting. But yeah, come back around and late developer, and I just kept plugging away at it, and it was something I knew I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
It was just frustrating during those years when you're just behind physically from everyone else.
Yeah. Hello to Ali Abbas as well, obviously in the chat. Former Jet, former Sydney FC, and everything else. New Zealand as well. Yeah, Wellington as well. How you going there, mate? Thanks for joining us tonight. So yeah, obviously you were saying you moved obviously to the Strikers and then obviously into Queensland Roar for the first season. What was that like? Obviously, the inaugural season. What was the environment like?
In the A League?
Yeah, in the A League, yeah.
It was probably I know we have a long pre-season in Australia, but that was the longest pre-season of my life. I mean, we were training for 7 or 8 months prior to that. It was like we were triathletes, mate. We were that fit, and we were just hanging on for the season. It was different because there was a lot more media, I guess, and marketing. We were forever out doing community work, coaching, things like that at schools and everything, just trying to get the name up and running. We were up against the Broncos, so we got next to no chance, so there was a lot of that work going on and a lot of hype. But yeah, it was a good experience. It was just a long pre-season, that was all.
So what were you doing in the pre-season? Like, did you just have tournaments, or did you just go outside of Australia or anything to do anything, or was it all Australian-based?
Did we go outside of Australia? I think we had one friendly against the, what were they called? The New Zealand Knights.
Yep.
Who we ended up playing in the first game anyway, I think. But yeah, we had a couple. There was a mini tournament. I think we played. It was down at Central Coast, and we played Sydney.
Yep.
Can't remember who else we played down there. But we just had a lot of friendlies. We did travel a lot within Queensland. Big enough place, going around. Almost like
supposed to get your name out as well, obviously.
The name.
Representing.
Well, that was what it was like. It was, the big marketing thing, and that was kind of new to me. I wasn't one to promote myself or big, but we had to promote the team and be a face of our town. And we travelled all around Queensland and played a lot of local games against local teams. It was good, but like I said, it was a long time.
So you obviously you had the one season there at Queensland. And then I believe, did you have a stint in Romania?
So when I was at the Strikers, I had a deal with this Romanian club, and obviously I tore my ACL, so that fell through. And then I had to prove I could get back up running and playing again. So that's when they were interested again in Romania. So that's why I left during the first year of the Raw. But that kind of fell through because they're not renowned for paying on time, put it that way. So I think it went a couple of months without being paid, and you try and explain that to your bank manager in Australia to put the mortgage on hold because I haven't been paid. It just doesn't work, does it? So happened. There was a boy at Falkirk at the time, Daniel McBreen. You'll know. He was at the same club that I was at, Craiova. So he just gave me the background and just said, look, you can sit there and wait for FIFA to help you out, which will take forever, or you can just cut your losses and come to Falkirk now because they were in a relegation fight and they needed a central defender. So I cut my losses and went over there and had the trial of my life, and we stayed up. We didn't get relegated, which was
Well, there you
awesome.
go.
Yeah, good experience.
I was going to say, yeah, what was it like over there? Obviously, other than the freezing cold and
Yeah,
everything else, obviously,
mate,
you would have played Celtic
loved
and
it.
so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, we played Celtic Rangers. We actually beat Celtic and beat Rangers.
Oh.
We had a coach who was a little old school, but was very big on getting the ball down and playing. And I know everyone keeps going, "Oh, that's unheard of in Scotland," but like, it's very quick because they play one touch, and it's a lot of the time because it might be a little bit physical, but they're very smart players, and people don't give them enough credit for that. But I loved it, mate. Every training session was like a World Cup because there was 6 other central defenders you had to be better than at every single training session to start. And if you didn't play well in a game, you were down the bottom of that pecking order. So I love that. And then the pressure of promotion relegation is huge. You don't realise that coming from Australia. We're just there's nothing like that, is there? So you go over there, and next minute, if you don't stay up, there's half your wages, or you might even be out of a job. So
exactly right.
It's good. It was a great experience, and I had the option to stay there longer, and I didn't. The person I was with, the girl I was with at the time, struggling, to live away. So we kind of came back to sort that out, and thinking, I'll always go back. We'll sort it out and we'll go back, and it didn't eventuate like that. So that's life. That's life.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. Obviously, we've had a few, we've had plenty of past players and obviously current players on and who have played overseas, and a lot of them are exactly like that. It's something else playing in a relegation fight compared to winning the league. Like, the fans just are out of control. Like, no doubt they're excited if you win in the league, but at the same time, like, if you don't stay up, holy cow.
Especially in leagues like Scotland as well, because the Scottish Championship isn't very highly publicised either. So what you mentioned about the whole wage drop and possibly losing a job, that's massive for a league like that.
It's huge. The money, the TV money is so huge over there, and we just don't realise that. Clubs rely on that, and a lot of the time when clubs get relegated, you never see them come back up. Like, look at Leeds United. Huge club got relegated. How long have they been? And they're still not up. When you start dropping down, that can be the end for clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. You know all about that, wouldn't you, Ben?
Oh, why did I pick the wrong night to wear one of my Birmingham City shirts?
It was good while you were there, but the struggles are real to get back.
The struggles are real, mate.
Absolutely. So obviously, you spent the season at Falkirk in Scotland, and then you were picked up by Wellington for the 2007. And then obviously you spent 2 seasons there to 2009. But before we go into Wellington, what was you were saying that you knew obviously your football career wasn't going to be the be all end all. You were always thinking after football. Were you studying? Obviously your time over in Scotland and everything else. Like, were you that early? Was it that early? You were really thinking?
It was earlier than that. I mean, when you're struggling when you're in Queensland and there's one team, and you're 21 when you sign your professional contract.
Yeah.
What are you doing when you leave school? You've got to do something. So I was actually studying primary school teaching. Funnily enough, I got to do 3 out of 4 years, and then I signed with the Strikers. And I'll never forget, I had the dean of the college called me in. He said, you need to choose one or the other, be a professional footballer or be a teacher. And I was like, well, that's not going to be a hard decision, mate. So I was like, I'll always come back to it. And I took soccer, and then then I started doing some coaching badges along the way. And you always coach like teams and help teams out, and especially the younger ones when you're playing. So I was keen on that. And then it probably wasn't until I was in Wellington when I was like, all right, look, things aren't going great. I'm back here. I need to. Retirement's getting closer. I was 27, 28, so I need to start planning. And then I just took up a Bachelor of Human Movement Science and Psychology major at Central Queensland online, and that was the start of it. Really knuckling down with the tertiary ed. So that was it was around then.
Around that time, obviously, Wellington, mate. What was fond memories? I believe that was where you scored I think it was your only A League goal. that correct?
Yeah, but it was a special goal. Come on.
They always are. They always are.
Come on. It was to win the game, all right? So, you know, I only score the ones that matter. So, but yeah, mate, it was good. Again, it was a new club. One, I've been to 3 startup clubs in the A League, so it was another one. And it's tough, mate, for a new club because you've got no reputation. There's no, it's new, so you've got to do all this groundwork to build up. And I don't think people understand how tough it is when new franchises come in. You know how much groundwork there is to get going. I think people just expect everyone to win straight off the bat. So I mean, in the A League, Adelaide were lucky because Adelaide kept most of those players from the NSL. So they kind of hit the ground running when that started.
Correct.
But
very much the same.
mate, Wellington's a great place. Beautiful people, nice place, except when it's windy and raining coming in sidewards.
Yep.
It was just tough, Again, that was their 3rd, I think, club that had kind of been rebranded in New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
So
they've been through a bit of.
They've been through a few, and it's good. It's really good to see where it's at now.
Yeah.
All that work and investment, and I bet you Ufi is cooking that the league stopped. The COVID coming because they were doing really well.
They were on a run.
Yeah, they were looking really good.
Run,
and as I said, you only see from a couple of seasons ago where they were struggling to get another license, and then if they were pushing them hard, and obviously this and that. So no, as I said, it's definitely good to see them obviously succeed. Who was coaching you there at the time? That was early.
Sir Ricky Herbert.
Ricky Herbert.
Mm.
How was he like? What was he like? What was his mentality?
He was good. He's fairly say the word laid back, but he wasn't super hands on. He was still doing the New Zealand national team as well.
Yeah, correct.
So it was interesting, but I mean he had a big task as well to get the club up and running. A lot of media commitments and the lot. And then I think Wayne O'Sullivan was his assistant, and Sully did a really good job as well, when we were there. So.
All right. So after we peel away from the Phoenix now, and you went back. You went to Sydney United.
Well, mate, I think you saw the common theme earlier on. I had 2 ACL reconstructions, so knees are on their last legs. So I didn't re-sign in Wellington because I had a contract in Korea, in South Korea. Well, I won't go to North Korea, but South Korea. So, and then I failed that medical. So I had to come back, have surgery, had a clean up, and obviously had already told Wellington, look, I'm going to try my luck elsewhere. Then I was kind of with nothing, and Ante Milicic gave me a call out of the blue and said, why don't you come down, get some games under your belt? And I think I played 5 games or something and loved it. Loved it. It was a really enjoyable time. And then from there, the Fury kind of come in, so I signed with them.
Yeah, again, bit of a difference. You obviously dropping down to the MPL. Again, it probably would have done you a lot of good, even though it was only a few games. Just as you said,
it's just enjoyable to have less prep.
Correct, the pressure.
You can just have a knock around. Guys are, there's not as many egos. It's just enjoyable when you get your love back. You got Ante Milicic there, David Drilic was there, Joe Vukic. Some really good players and guys, and you get the love back. And I know it was only 5 games, but it felt like a long time. But it was enjoyable, mate. And we did all right in those 5 games.
Well, the 5 games would have been, obviously, you said you just come back from your knee. So,
just to get some match fitness,
Just to see if your knee was going to be good enough and hold up as well, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it didn't last too long because then I went up and signed with the Fury, and because when you do your ACL, you kind of get like a bruising at the back of the knee, posterior horn, and then a lot of the time that cartilage falls out. So when I was up at the Fury, it kind of fell out and had a big hole there, and it was. We had a surgery to check how bad it was, and the surgeon kind of said, "Look, if this doesn't work, we have to have this other surgery where we take the cartilage out, roll it in a lab for 6 weeks, stick it back in, and then 16 months later, 16 months, you can then start to play again." So anyway, played the first couple of games. That's when the knee went. The surgery didn't work, so then I had to have that second surgery, a Macy graft it's called, and that was the end of it, really. I was out for 16 months, did rehab, when you're out for that long, you're not even close to being, the same. So I came back, trained my ass off, came back, had a trial at Melbourne Heart, but just wasn't cutting it. And then this Hong Kong deal come out of nowhere. And I thought, I've got to jump at it. And then went over there, and funnily enough, they're all artificial pitches, so the knees didn't last too long over there.
Yeah, I was going to say, that wouldn't have been good.
Yeah.
So how was... Before we go into there, how was the environment at North Queensland? Obviously, as I said, it didn't last long. Which I was going to say, you were saying about your career, your time.
Mate, it was a really, this is my opinion. I think it was a very rushed decision to close the Fury. Now, AFL are smart in how they set up clubs, right? They'll do bottom up. So you've got to show you've got the groundwork, the academies, then you get the cherry on top. You know what I mean? Then you get the senior teams. In Australia, we just kind of go, well, here's a cherry, now build the base. And it's just so stupid, So you're going up to Townsville, and you can't just have it in Townsville. Like maybe 5 out of your 11 games are in Townsville, but you've got to go to Mackay, you've got to go to Cairns, Rockhampton. It's like a regional kind of team is what it needs to be. And if they'd actually done their research, they would have seen how long it took the Cowboys to build that base they've got, that supporter base. It took years, mate. Yeah. So you're trying to tell a soccer team you've got a year to have a full stadium. Like, come on.
No, never going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And there's so many good kids, good players out there. I mean, if you look at the Northern QAS, you look how many players have come from there. Corica, Ferreira, Thwaite, Caravella, Shro. Yeah, mate, I'm probably missing another 100. And sorry, guys, if I'm missing out. But there's a massive market up there that football has missed out on now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually talking to Caravella not long ago. He's going to jump on the pod in a couple of weeks, I believe, hopefully. And as I said, he's doing good things up there. He's got an academy up there and everything now, and putting obviously all his knowledge back into the grassroots, which is absolutely great. So I still can't believe Robbie Fowler went there. I was just amazed, what they would have been sweetening him with, and come up.
Mate, I think they took him out on one of the good days, and did all the right tourist stuff like fishing, and deep sea fishing and everything, and just you go there for a day or two and you're like, oh man, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But when you stay there a bit longer, there's not much to do up there, and if you're not from Queensland, you'll get pretty antsy and want to leave, but I'm from there, so I'm like, I don't mind it, It was funny because every time we travel, like to Sydney or Melbourne, he's like, far out. I went to the
Mate, I lasted a whole 3 hours in Cairns in my only one appearance there. Flew in, picked up a mate, and we started driving straight back to Melbourne. I couldn't deal with it.
Oh man, and that's the biggest thing with people like even in A League in general. Obviously you get your international stars and everything else that come over, and
I just can't cope with the heat.
But not even that. The fans and everything else, expect them to perform miracles as soon as they get here. Like, man, there's no way they come from Europe where it's the hot temperature over there is like 20 degrees. I mean, if you're lucky.
Prime example is Alexander Kokko to the Jets, coming from Finland, playing in minus degrees, and then playing his summer season here in the A League at the Jets.
Silly.
Like,
we only signed him for his talk. We didn't sign him on his ability. He said he was going to come over and touch Timmy Cahill up and score more goals than him. That's why we signed him.
Look, I think the recruitment has been poor in the A League in terms of, we keep looking past Asia and this, especially being in Guam now with the international realm, there are so many good players in Asia that would just fit straight in and rip the A League apart. But we keep going, over past Asia for whatever reason, maybe it's ego. We just don't think we're on par with Europe, and we'll sign European players who are probably, not to be disrespectful, but past their prime, and we're kind of signing a novelty. For a name, rather than, hey, is this guy in his prime? And I get it, we're in our infancy early on, and like the MLS and the J League, that's what you've got to cop. And as the league gets stronger, you can, sign players in their prime more. But I think we need to really open the net to Asia. You'll get some unbelievable players out of there that'll fit in and rip it apart.
I 100% agree. Even the Jets, obviously we had Leaky G, who I think was a gun and we should never have let go. But
what about when you won it? When you had Song?
Song, weapon.
Who'd heard of him before you come over? No one.
Nobody.
You know?
Nobody.
Exactly. He killed it. He did excellent.
Shinjiano, absolutely. You know, and he done really well as well.
And they're a different breed of player than what Australia tends to produce. A lot of physical players, whereas new nations like Japan and Korea and the other parts of Asia, they're all very technical players.
Oh yeah.
Those sort of players that can thread the ball through, like on a knife's edge, like a knife through butter.
I've seen some pretty solid Asian players. Don't you worry about that.
Oh yeah.
I've seen some. Mate, don't think they're not physical. They're
they are.
Oh mate, but they're very street smart, and that's because their cultures are very, dog eat dog. Yeah. We're very lucky here, and we're probably a little bit too nice, and that's a big difference between us and the European mindset, and even other Asian countries, mate. They're, you see the Vietnamese teams coming through now, mate. There's some excellent play, crafty, street smart players there, and Uzbekistan, these players, and they don't get enough credit.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you finished your professional career. With obviously North Queensland, you did play obviously a little bit back in your home of Queensland. With
Moreton Bay.
I think, Moreton Bay. Love the Bugs. Moreton Bay Bugs. How good are they? It's been a little bit off topic, but damn. You get picked up by the Jets.
Yeah.
2013. Bloody, who was there? 2013. Gary Van Egmont would have been there.
Yeah.
How did that all come about? What was your time like? Obviously at the Jets, I think it was only the one season.
Yeah, mate. How did that come about? Good question. I think Robbie Middleby just gave me a call, and because he knew I was doing studies in that area, and he just said, "Are you keen?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I'm keen." I'm not going to stay in the NPL if I can get an A League opportunity. So jumped at it, went up there, good bunch of boys. It was just unfortunate, Dutchy ended up getting sacked, and that just meant a clear out at the end of the season. They wanted a new coach, and he wanted his new staff. But I have no regrets. So that's just where I'm at. Everywhere I go, I never have any regrets because I always give 110%. Work 24/7 because early on I learned. I got some good advice early on when I was trialing at the Strikers from a coach. He just said the worst thing you can do is leave that trial and regret it. Like regret you didn't do something better. So I've always taken that on board, and it's stood me in, been in good stead along the way. So, but yeah, the Jets, I loved it. It was nice, a beautiful place, Newcastle. Great place, good people, very, very passionate, and it's a huge region, And it's one of those places where you're like, how is this club not continually in the top couple of places?
Yeah, try being a fan.
Yeah, we asked ourselves that question.
I didn't know if I was rubbing salt into a wound there. I was I better stop just in case.
No, you're right, mate.
We're used to it.
Forever 7th. We go by
Forever
our motto. Forever 7th. So we're always on the cusp, but we're just not really there.
That was good.
Unless you get robbed, obviously, like we did last year.
Don't even go into it.
Yeah. The VAR special. They could have brought that in the following season, but anyway, we won't go down that road. So obviously you finished at the Jets. What happened after that? Was there any? Obviously, you went back obviously to Queensland and played a bit more and so forth. But was there any sort of other sort of jobs in regards to that sort of field before the Guam sort of come on, or were you just back in?
Well, went back, and Western Pride was an NPL club. I'd only been up 2 years, and I went back and played, with the Palm Beach and finished that season, and was working at the Pride, and that was an unbelievable experience because we got to implement a lot of change there, create a long-term strategic plan, like a development club. So we had probably the youngest team in the NPL, and the plan was, look, we think we can provide an environment where we can produce players for the professional level, because that's what the NPL was designed for, to be a shop window for young players, not a retirement village. So we changed that model. That was how the club was going to be. That was its identity. And we said, look, in 5 years, these 16, 17, 18-year-olds will win the league. And they ended up winning it within 3 years. So I was happy to lose that one. But, they did well. And we also produced, I think there's been 10 players from that club that have gone on to a professional level, whether youth teams or senior. So that was really enjoyable. And obviously when I went from there to the Raw. When I finished the Raw, I come back to the Pride, and to continue it on. And they were trying to get a franchise in the A League, so we're pushing hard for that as well.
Yep, I think there definitely needs to be another A League side up in Brisbane. Queensland in general. Doesn't have to be in Brisbane, but I think they need a derby up there, and
needs a derby.
We'll get into that obviously after we talk a bit about your career, of what your thoughts are, obviously.
Sure.
In the A League scenario, but I think there's teams obviously like your Western Uniteds and stuff like that who I think shouldn't be there. I mean, I think there's a lot of other places that should have got looked at before we put a third team in Melbourne and so forth. But we'll go down that road in a bit, obviously. But we'll talk about the main reason why I really wanted to get you on and have a chat to you about, obviously, the Guam international job and the setup and how everything's going over there. Obviously they're a low ranked side. You can definitely look at some of the fixtures. Getting beat by Fiji 12-0 and some big losses there as well. But at the same time, 21-0 North Korea against Guam. Again, what? But how did the job come about? Who approached you? How did you get there?
Yeah, so Belinda Wilson was the technical director in Guam, and Belinda was the women's head coach of the Raw when I was working at the Raw, and I've known Belinda before. And she just said, you need to throw your hat in the ring. And I just said, what do I know about international coaching? I was very hesitant, and it honestly took like a month or two for her to convince me, you need to just submit it. So I threw the CV in, and I was like, oh, look, nothing will come about. And we're actually in Japan at the time with the Pride boys, because the Pride we'd won the final, and young boys, when they win, they kind of think they're untouchable. And so Graham was the head coach at the time, and I was the football director, and we're like, he thought, it'd be a good opportunity to go to Japan to, give them another experience where they might not win, a bit of a level up. I was there for the week, and Belinda just called and said, look, there's an interview if you want it. We're down to the final four. And I was like, okay, I'm in Japan, 4-hour flight. I'll get on a plane. So I got on a plane, flew in for the day. The night, like one night. Put me up, did a Robbie Fowler to me, put me up in the nicest hotel right on the beach. And I was like, yep, if I get this job, I'm buzzing, beautiful place. Went in the interview, thought I did well in the interview, didn't know what was going to happen. And apparently there was another guy that got a lot more experience, but his last question he kind of stuffed up in, and he just went totally away, on a tangent to what they wanted. On the last question, I was like, he could have just kept his mouth shut for that one last question, but apparently, he stuffed it, and then they just go. So he was out, then I was the next one, and he gave it to me. So
there you go.
I can't complain. So that's how the job come about.
That's it. Yeah, right. Fair enough. So obviously you had your assistant, I think, Breen was over there as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. So I brought Daniel, Matt Ham, a few Aussie boys, because. So we'll start back a little bit. Guam has come a long way. So yeah, it's one of the youngest teams in FIFA. Was getting flogged big scores early on, but you've got to remember, small population, not many professional players.
100%.
The last 4-year cycle they were in, the previous coach kind of found a lot of 4 MLS players, a few other semi-pro or professionals, so they had a really good team, and they did well. Those boys have now retired or moved on, so now we're kind of left back with, not left, but now the island boys are there, and the league isn't the greatest on the island, and a lot of the other boys are in the US because it's a US territory. But they're doing really well from what they have been. They've come a long way, and those score lines aren't there. Well, not since I've been there. I think we lost 7-0 to China, which was actually, if you know what China is and what Guam is, that's an excellent score, because I think Cambodia played Iran or someone like that at the same time, and they lost 14-0. So we're coming a long way, especially with the type of, the caliber of players that we've got. They're not full-time professionals, so
yeah.
It's come a long way. So yeah,
as you were saying, obviously off air, facilities aren't that crash hot.
No.
You're talking about obviously artificial pitches and a grass pitch or whatever that's, you compare to Australia, it's a little bit difficult and so forth. But again, they deal with what they've got. And what's the youth development like over there since you've been there? How have you seen it change?
So when I first got there, I did a review. I always do reviews on programs because I think you've got to get an objective, look on where the program is actually at. You can't just come in with a preconceived idea. So we did a review, drew up a strategic plan, and in that review we found there was no players from 1997 to 2001 born, like maybe one or two, and you're talking about the next crop of players to graduate into your Matau, which is the senior team, into the senior team.
Yeah.
So I don't have that. So I've got an aging squad, a handful of players from 18 to 25, and then the next group is 16, 17-year-olds. So we're 2 4-year cycles away from filling the void, put it that way, and being competitive. But what happens on Guam is, because it's a US territory, the kids will leave and they'll try to go to college in the US. And I'm huge on that. I'm like, you need to get off the island and you need to go and see the world. You need to go and play in better leagues and get training. So we're creating a network where that is. So we got 5 players to go to college this year, which is really good in football colleges. So that's what happens on the island. They finish high school and then they go to the US. The problem with the US model is high school is the be all and end all.
Yeah.
And they play every sport and that's it. You've got parents that come up to you and they're like, "Oh, coach, did you know I was a high school state wrestling champ?" I'm like, "Great. And what have you done since?" Nothing. That's their claim to fame, They kind of leave it there. And I'm trying to say, you need to keep progressing, moving forward. So we've implemented an under-16s and an under-19s national team program where they train 4 nights a week. The senior team also trains 4 times a week as well. So, mate, I take up to 12 sessions a week. So it's a lot of work, but we're seeing the fruition because implementing a new playing style as well. So a lot of the islands, it's, watch the Ronaldo or Lionel Messi highlights, and that's what they want to be like. And they kind of forget there's 10 other players in the team that they can pass a ball to. So you're trying to create a whole team approach, possession-based approach as well, rather than just launching it and watching that guy go. And then a lot of the teams, lower-ranked teams, will park a bus, and they do that for risk mitigation. They don't want big blowouts. But in doing that, you never evolve as a footballing nation or a team because you'll always be down there. So the teams that do well, you more often than not have the ball, and create a lot more chances. So we're changing that as well. So we're going through that transition phase. And early on, they're kind of looking at me like, "Hey, this isn't working." It's like, well, it is. We're getting better scorelines than what you previously had. I mean, we just had the under-19s tournament in, when was that? November. And we played Japan first off. And the worst thing you can do for us is the first game of any tournament is a write-off because we don't get off the island to play. So a lot of these boys have never played another team. So it's like deer in headlights. And then we got drawn Japan first. So I'm like, oh, fuck. All right. So we ended up losing 10-0, and that's a lot. But the time before it was 20-0, and 5 of those goals were just from deer in headlight goals. You know what I mean? Like if they'd had a couple of games beforehand, it wouldn't have been 10-0.
Yeah.
So they are coming a long way. We are getting respect in Asia in the games we play because we're trying to play football. And like I said to the players, if you want to make it or get off island, you've got to show you can play football. What do you think a coach is watching when you're parking a bus and kicking it long? He's going to turn that game off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I'm trying to improve that. So it's a big project, put it that way. But we have made big inroads in the 2 and a bit years that I've been there, and I don't know if it means anything, but we did win the aspiring member nation in Asia. So for our youth program, so that was good.
It's something. That was good. How many achievements and so forth have they won before you got there?
Well, no, they'll not. Look, this is. I won't say that, but I don't think will they ever make a World Cup? Probably not. I think we have to be realistic in that. So they're not really going to win anything. And that's purely down to the limitations that the island has, like financial limitations, small population sizes, players that aren't playing in professional leagues. But what we can do is continually to improve it. And who knows, in 10, 20, 30 years down the track, if they keep progressing. But
look, and that's the biggest thing as well, is for you, as you were sort of saying, it's getting them off the island is a massive thing, as you were saying. If you can get some talented players who have that something and get them off the island and
get them into college, they get looked at by MLS sides.
Yeah, and that's all. That's it. Wherever they go, whether it be the A League or the NSL, or you get them over here or something, sweet as.
Yeah.
But if you're doing that and you are getting these players off the island and they're making something of their life, that's an achievement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With what the resources and everything else that you've got with you. We can talk obviously a little bit of
It's a really okay, maybe I'm biased because I'm there, but when I first got there, I was like, you know what? Every single coach in Australia should be sent to places like Guam or Fiji, small places where you're just pushing shit uphill. Like it is so hard, but because you learn so much, there's things here, if you can coach in Guam, you can coach anywhere. That's basically what I'm saying. So, and then that was my thought process. And I thought maybe that's just me because I'm, when you're in the situation, you think I'm doing it harder than anyone else. And then you start playing competitions, junior ones in particular, and you find out that Japan, Korea, these countries have a coach education program. So they send their coaches to Macau, Guam, Saipan, like these smaller countries in Asia to learn. And they pay for it. So they'll farm their coaches out, they'll learn at these places and then bring them back. And I didn't know that until the under-19s tournament, and the Japanese coach come up to me and he's like, "Oh, you're doing a really good job." And I was kind of like, "Really? It feels like I'm taking one step forward, two back." And he goes, "No, I coached in Macau." He goes, "I know exactly what you're going through." He goes, "I've been to the parents' places at dinner to try to convince their kid to come training and everything else." And he's like, "I know what you're going through. Keep it up. It'll make you a better coach down the track." And I was like, "Oh, that was really good for me because it's a very lonely place when you're there because you're leading the change and everyone's looking at you and you've got no one else there because you're on your own. So it definitely makes you a stronger person and a lot better coach." So getting back to, I think Australia, that's what we lack. We really do lack a coach education program that really develops coaches practically, if you know what I mean. Like
100%.
You can coach in the NPL or A League and what? It's not, no disrespect, it's not a hard league, is it?
No, exactly.
There's a lot of stability and there's what problems are you going to have? Compared to other places.
I suppose that's the biggest thing.
Aside from the limitations of, salary caps and all that sort of stuff, but it's not like you have to go to a player's house and sit and have dinner with them.
That's the biggest thing.
To convince him to come to training.
They're a train. They're a train. They're knocking off work. They're skipping work to get to the training. They know what it means to be playing at that level and so forth. If you've got to
providing for families and things like that as well.
You physically got
to.
But
you've also got so many players to choose from. Imagine, and that's even mine. I'm a national team, and I don't have many to choose from, and that's it. I can't just go right. You're out. I'll get someone. Who's the next?
Well,
I'm not Australia. I've got 500 players I can choose from, and just cut through the. So you learn to manage and get the best out of those players because that's what you've got. It's a clubland, and that's why you think more and more, and you're like, I have no empathy for any club coach who creates a bad team because you've got a blank canvas or you can sign players. You just got to do your due diligence. And Asia and the world is a massive place full of players.
Well, that was my next question. I was going to say, what's their national, what's their competition like over there for their juniors?
The domestic one?
Domestics, yeah. What's that like for you? So you were just saying, obviously, you haven't got much to choose from.
Yeah. It's amateur. So, mate, one team will get paid because that coach wants to win every year. So, it's a little ego thing. So he'll pick up the Matau players, right? So there's two teams that are really good, and they're pretty much full of Matau players. Then there's another team, Islanders. They're not too bad. Excuse me. And then there's a team we actually have the under-19s in that team, in that league as well, and they're roughly 16 years of age, and they will beat all the other teams bar those top three that I mentioned. They will come close to beating them or draw. But the thing is that under-19s, when they finish grade 12, they graduate out and they go off the island, or they go back into clubs, and then the next batch comes through, if you know what I mean. So it will forever be a young team in a men's comp. But look, there's some good players, don't get me wrong, but they don't train full time. You know, they've got to work, provide for their families. It's just, you know, they don't have what Australia has, the opportunity to play in professionally. So
Well,
they'll take work over football, which I understand. You know.
Yeah, correct. Well, I was gonna say, we've got here Jason. Sorry if I butcher his name.
Jason Cunliffe.
Yeah, Jay. Yep.
Yeah. So obviously, you know, he's one of the most capped, 53 games thereabouts, scored a few goals. What's he like? You know, what is he talented?
Yeah, Jay's how old is Jay now? I think he's 36 or 37. Jay, look, very smart player, Jason. I think if he got a bit of luck earlier on, mate, he could have played professionally. Like, he played in the Philippines, but he could have played in a a professional league. Yeah. So there's a lot of good. There's a couple of players there, mate, that can play professionally, no doubt. Yep. It's just, it's such a family-orientated island. You know, they're always kind of drawn back to that. And will they risk the chance, you know, of trying somewhere and leave their family?
That's the biggest thing.
Probably not, you know. And that's a tough one, because a lot of the time they get homesick and they'll come back. Like, especially the younger boys, when they go to college, you know, you're kind of hoping they get through the first year and then they're all right. But it's so family orientated, and that plays a big part in what they do.
Yep.
But I mean, Jay probably gets frustrated because he has been so much better than what's on the island. But you know, he's been really good. He's come a long way since I've been there, and he coaches the younger kids as well, and has a lot to give back. And he's just frustrated that Guam isn't as professional as the other nations. Do you know what I mean? And that's what he wants to see.
Yep.
But unfortunately, it's going to take a long time for that to happen, and that's a reality. You know.
Well, he's a bit much of a prime example there as well. Like, having his youth career at like Houston Texans and Santa Clara, so it's obvious that he's left the island, gone back, studied, but he's actually come to bring back, you know, what knowledge he has to Guam, and as even in a coaching capacity at a smaller level.
Yeah, it's people like him that, you know, obviously what Guam need, obviously, for the future going forward. You know, people like him who have experienced it, come back, and are hopefully willing to, you know, progress the country forward and get them something. You know,
it's tough because, like, I'll use the word political. You don't realise how political Asia is, and then even within the federation, the GFA. I'll just give you a bit of background. So the last World Cup qualifiers, they were in round 2, what we're in now as well, and they ran out of money. And the GFA, which is the Guam Football Association, the equivalent of the FFA, just pulled them out of the comp. Didn't even notify the players, just pulled them out. Wow. So there's massive animosity there between the players and the GFA. And this was like, there was a 2-year period of dormancy. There was nothing, you know, before I'd come in. And when I come in, I thought, oh, you know, it won't be too bad. It's still there, you know. So you've got that infighting in a way. You know, I'm trying to be respectful here, but it's just got to be. They've got to make peace and move forward for the betterment of the game. Right. And but because of that, you know, some people won't get involved. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. No, totally.
It's tough. It's not easy. It's you know, football's so political, and you know, you talk to Jay and a few of the other boys about coaching, and they're like, "Oh, you got a really good job. You just come in and coach." And I was like, "Mate, that's 10% of my job. Yeah. What do you think I'm doing for the other 90%? I'm protecting this environment. You don't think I'm in there having discussions, managing up. You know, it's draining.
Yeah. It's like, same why Guam. Same why the country needs to invest in the football. You know, in general. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not doing it as the coach, it's who is. Yeah,
Well, it's hard because FFA's, James Johnson's in now, but when you have non-footballing people in key decision-making positions,
Yeah.
it's so frustrating, mate, because, mate, you're explaining why you need water bottles. Like, I'm not lying, but, just basics of why these things need to happen.
Yeah.
And it just takes you away from where you could be, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
every day is a fight because, you've got administrators who don't understand the football aspects.
Yeah. What's the training facility? What's the training equipment? Like in comparison to say what you were receiving, obviously in the A League and everything else. Are you receiving those sort of things, or?
Well, they're lucky because there's a lot of grants. So FIFA give a lot of money or grants, development funds. So I couldn't tell you how many years ago it was now, maybe 10.
Yep.
They got a grant and they built 2 artificial fields. Probably in need of rebuilding at the moment, but let's just say maintenance wasn't done properly. But they're good, and we've got a gym in there. So I designed the gym as I arrived. So they've got a high performance gym in there, which we use. They've got training fields. They've got good change rooms. I mean, they've got what they need as players.
Yep.
It's just having them be there every training session.
Yeah. So so you've just signed on. You were saying another 2 years extension.
Yeah. So I'm on an E3 visa, which is 2 years at a time. It's this special visa with the US and Australia. If you've got the right qualifications, you can get that, and it's just a matter of just renewing it. So re-sign for another 2 years. I'm 6 months into that.
Yep.
Well, 2.6 years into my contract. Yeah, been there.
So what's your plans, mate? What's your plans moving forward for the remainder of this contract?
Well, we have so with Guam we have round 2 games left. Then EAF will come in again. We won't have any junior tournaments this year or next year because they've changed the setup of that. So we actually skip a year with the junior teams, which is not good in a way because they need regular games. But look, we'll keep training. So the biggest thing for me is having sustainable programs there. So what's happened in the past is coaches will come in, and because they rely so heavily on the coach, and it's that dictatorship model, when you get a lot of Koreans, Japanese coming in, there's no thought processes from below, if that makes sense. So I've kind of come in and flipped it and say, well, you guys need to know what you're doing, because what happens if I'm not here? What happens when I leave? Does it just go to shit again like it has done? Because I wouldn't want this on my worst enemy coming into the role after me of having 2 years of nothing, where you're trying to start again. So how do we keep it sustainable on the island? So you're training up coaches, their mindsets to be more professional, and why, and that's come a long way. And if I can keep that sustainable, then great. That's a huge tick, because the senior teams will be taken care of with that production line.
Yeah.
So that's what's been lacking. So that's huge. With the senior teams, we continue to progress and hopefully get a bit of luck. I mean, just being in this round, and no disrespect to the group of players we've got, but we're not professionals, is huge. And we're playing against professionals. Even the Philippines, people don't understand. The majority of those players are in Europe.
Yeah.
In the Philippines team. Maldives won the SAFF. You're China and Syria, and Syria are a good team. So it's at this stage it's a tough group, put it that way, for us, and that's just being relative. So it's a great experience, and I'm trying to blood as many young boys that will be there in the future, so that it's an experience that they evolve from. It's not just a token gesture. I mean, and it's tough because a lot of the older boys, they'll be like, well, why are you giving it to those younger ones? And I'm kind of trying to say, like, you're not going to be here in the next cycle. Are we going to qualify for an Asian Cup or anything now? No. Okay, so we have to cop it here and give these kids a go for the betterment for the future.
Yep.
And it's a real balancing act with the players in regards to that.
Yeah.
So
right.
that's I just want the program to continue.
Yeah.
I mean, what would be ideal is that I would be allowed to work in a club and do the national team. That would be fantastic, but and I say that because you do miss the week-to-week games.
Yeah.
Like you really do. Like we do 12 training sessions a week. That's over 3 teams.
Yeah.
But for what? Where's the game at the end of the week? And it's that transfer of learning really gets lost. because they'll go and play in their club team, and mate, they're not there to develop and play. They're there to win, and they play with their mates, especially the younger ones.
Yep.
And they win like 18-0, and you're like, yeah, good on you. What was the point of that? Like, why don't you test yourself? So it gets frustrating. That does get frustrating.
Absolutely.
That's right. I've just been looking at some of the team names in the Guam Soccer League. Sit there and go, how?
What do you got? What do you got? Oh no, the second division ones are better. Like they actually got some good ones. Like
FC Barcelona. Yeah, that's the one that I saw and sort of went sideways and went, what? That's something we'd find at indoor.
Straight onto that. That's something we'd use. Where's the logo of that Barcelona logo?
Yeah.
The beard can.
Might have trademarked that, boys. So.
Oh mate, that's great.
That's brilliant.
The shipyard. Hey, happy days.
Shipyard.
Yeah, they're loving life.
Anderson Bombers. Anderson Bombers, that's a good one.
Anderson Bombers.
That's the Air Force team.
Yeah, right. I was going to say that you're familiar.
Quality distributors.
Straight up, Islanders FC.
Yeah. Sidekicks FC.
But the Masters division, mate. Are you jumping in that one or?
No, no.
Geno's FC.
Geno's FC, yeah, Big Blue. The Hyundai family. You run that one?
Is there a team? Oh, that's the Korean group. Yeah.
Yeah, Hyundai. Yeah.
As you can tell, it's very sponsor orientated.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, look, at the end of the day, as you said, it's you're in there to just, as I said, make it as you want to make it better than what you started with. I mean, I suppose that's the most easiest way. Yeah, any coach wants to do. No, I mean, it doesn't matter where they are. They want to go in.
It's not your Japans or Koreas, Australias. Look, we know that. It poses massive challenges that you wouldn't get in those places. But the positive as well. Look, that's a positive. Just working there, I'm lucky to be there. Like, I'll make that clear. But what you're exposed to, again, I would never get in a clubland, whether in the A League or in NPL in Australia. I wouldn't get, exposure to Marcello Lippi. You go to conferences and you got Carlos Queiroz there and sent, all these top coaches in Asia in the room, and you get to chat with them and talk, and the information you're exposed to. I mean, Japan, and this is how far ahead they are. They want to win a World Cup, really do. They invited all the coaches from Asia, head coaches, to this conference. Plus, there was about, I'm not lying, maybe 500 of their local coaches, like, top line coaches. Yep. And they brought in the head of the French national team, the Clairefontaine, and then the English model. And then they just want to know, what do you do with Clairefontaine? So you get exposed to that, and you realise what they do. And then, okay, what's the England model? And you get exposed to that. I'm talking like from a national team point of view. Yeah. And all these other models, and you're exposed to it, and this information, you're like, I never would have got this if I'd have just stayed in the A League, not even close. And then the networking. So now, you get an A League job, all right, you need players, right? Just which national team coach are you going to call up?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a huge positive for me. And teams play 3 formations in a game. So it's not like the A League where everyone's playing the same and there's not much variation in it. It's so tactical, and that really gets tested. And it's challenging, and it's exciting, that's enjoyable. It's just frustrating. You don't play enough games,
Yeah, I think I'd say that's sort of the downside of it. With the plus side is it's more the fact that a job like that is so much more rewarding than, say, soccer is.
Oh, correct.
So much more rewarding.
I mean, I wouldn't complain if I was coaching in a World Cup with the soccer.
But
a few more games,
more like a developing nation and developing another nation's youth talent.
Yeah,
but
you feel like you're doing more.
But I mean, like, how many times do you see a coach and there's a good team, and you ask the question, well, was it the coach or the players?
Yeah,
and then you go to somewhere like Guam or something, and you got the coach and the players. And it's really distinct what the issue is. I mean, we're still losing, but we're getting better. So I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, it challenges you as a coach. And the first year, I would come home after training sessions just scratching my head, like, how do I fix that? And it's just so many like challenges, and it's awesome. You know, you really do grow. And after the first year, I thought I was invincible. I was like, okay, I can handle anything. And then you have another year, and you're like, no, now I really am invincible. You know, like you just grow in confidence because, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I've had it. You know, so
yeah, no, 100%. Like I said, like I couldn't imagine walking into that in the first year. Like, just
mind blown.
Again, as it's someone who you know, who's come from Australia and like, again, in their eyes, had life so easy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, shit, you can play every week. Holy crap, you can do this. You don't need to work 3 jobs or whatever to put food on your table. And
my parents go to work, not me.
You know, that's
like,
just things like that. And then you go into a place like that and just going, holy cow, you know, how different life is in these places. And you just, I suppose, you want to make a change. You know, in your head, it just takes over. I'm sure, like just. Shit.
Well, I think
I need to do something.
And I think that tests your philosophy as a coach. I mean, you coach to make people better. That's my underlying purpose. I love seeing people get better.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I do it, and it's a challenge. And then you also think, how many coaches would stay there?
Yeah.
How many coaches would turn up and go, no chance, I'm out. You know, it's like, well, okay, it's a challenge, and I'm willing to roll up my sleeves, and I have done a lot of numerous other clubs, and go, well, let's make it better.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And success is going to mean something different to what success means for a Japanese national team, you know?
Yeah.
Because we're not at that level yet. Yeah. And it makes you think, like what you were saying, you can see why the Japanese and Koreans are so far ahead with their coach development.
100%.
They know that these smaller countries and teams will offer so much more for coach development than going straight into the Japanese national team, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you've got pros who 10 times out of 10, the ball will go where they want it to go.
Yeah.
You know?
There's the quality,
the quality of the learning versus the actual mental strength needed in a position like that.
And it's something different. I've been in professional land my whole life. You know, I've been in Australia. I've been fortunate enough to go to Europe for a little bit, and then you know, I've done the coaching stuff here. And you're like, okay. And I've done club visits in Europe as well. I've been to Schalke in Germany. I've been to Genk. Been to Nantes. You know, ADO Den Haag in Holland. And you see it, and you're like, that would be fantastic to be there. And it just kind of gets that hunger going a bit more when you're working.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, that's where I want to be. You never get complacent.
Yeah, correct. Well, I suppose, you know, we can move on there and talk a little bit, obviously, about the Australian setup and that. I'm not going to go too much into it because I think when we start, we could be talking about it for nearly 3 hours of how much things need to change and shit like that. But what's 3 things? Obviously, you know, you can, I suppose, from your perspective and your eyes as a international coach, what are the 3 things that you believe need to change in Australian football?
3 things. We'll see where we go. I'll start with the first one is the alignment. You know, nothing's lined up in the country in regards to all the competitions. Do you know what I mean? So there has to be alignment there and a tiered approach. You know, what's the end goal? To play at the highest level. That should be the approach. You know, and then so if we can get the competition structures lined up, and then that should make, whether it's promotion, relegation, or expansion, that should allow that to be more an easier transition, put it that way, when we do get to that point. So I think structurally it needs fixing.
Yeah.
And then maybe, you know, a side point to that, there's so much interference as well. You know, there's so many levels of bureaucracy and money that who knows where this money's going. You know, I would love to see an FFA budget from all, you know, that shows spending in national teams, spending in the A League, spending, you know, where does the money come from? The member feds, the state feds.
Yeah.
You know, you want a transparent view of that, because I'm sure there's so much money going into administration that could be streamlined.
Yeah.
You know, and then hopefully significantly reduce the costs of playing.
Yeah.
I mean, my experiences in the NPL, coaching, you don't get, you know yourself, when you charge 2,000 to 3,000 a season for a kid to play, do you honestly think you're getting the best player or the person that can pay?
Yeah.
So what you know in football or sport is it's usually the players that have had had a lot of adversity in their life that will make it.
Yep. Because
they have to learn grit, you know, to overcome adverse situations. and they will keep fighting and keep fighting. And unfortunately, with this current setup, with a price structure, you don't see those players as much.
Yeah,
it's a sad reality. The second one, I think there needs to be. Everyone talks about player development. We've got to focus on the youth. And I can ask the question, okay, yes, we do need to focus on the youth, don't get me wrong, but what are we developing them for? Like, what happens when they don't become youth, when they become mid-20s, when they're supposed to be in their prime? What about those players? Like, are we just going to keep talking about the youth? Are we forgetting there's, a process all the way through to retirement?
Yeah.
So I think those kind of players get forgotten about as well. And then, we're trying to win. We want to be a league that's super competitive where teams are winning, not just players turning up knowing they're going to get a contract and recycled in the A League because it's the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be changed. But then the other one for me would be coach development. There needs to be a coach development model. If you're going to bring a foreign coach into the A League, he better be a Marcello Lippi. He better be an Ancelotti. It better be someone where every other coach in the country can go, you know what, wow, we can learn something from that. And there should be a rule where he's not allowed to bring any assistants. So if you bring Ancelotti and you put him in Sydney FC, for example, then it's Australian coaches who are in there learning off him. So we're developing our own coaches.
Absolutely.
And I think it's the same with the players. We talk about the quality of players that come into the A League. How many have failed? How many have done well? And then it's got to be the same with the coaching. Why are we just signing a foreigner? Do we think they're better? On what grounds? Just because they're from Europe? Like how many foreign coaches have done well in the A League?
Exactly.
Like have won it.
Exactly.
But then where's the respect on the Aussie coaches who go through hell? Pay a fortune, go through all these courses, jump through hoops. How tough do they do it in the NPL as well? It's not an easy place to coach. And then we just disregard that, and then we'll just go and give it to someone from Europe because they're from Europe.
Yeah.
I think that's wrong.
I mean,
really
you put the shoe slightly on the other foot, and this only comes to my mind because of the article that you shared to me earlier today, Josh. Look at the case of Kevin Muscat. Grounded out here in the A League as a coach. Got all his badges and all that. Was a successful coach here in the A League. Goes and signs with a European club, only to have FIFA turn around and say, "Well, we don't recognise your coaching badges."
UEFA doesn't recognise it.
UEFA doesn't recognise it, and he then has to go and get his A's and his pro license.
Yep.
And 12 months down the track, he is now finally today been given that job that he was initially signed for.
Yeah.
Mate, the Australians get looked upon like crap, and mate, it's the same when you go over there and play there. You ask any player that's gone and played in Europe, you're at the bottom of the rung straight off the bat, and you're not even looked at as a player. And it's the same as imagine as coaching. What regard do we have as coaches? But yet we'll do the opposite. We'll just open the doors to Europe to anyone from overseas. Do you know what I mean? Without even vetting them or making them work for it, because and it's an issue that's in Asia. I see it in the Asian conferences that we go on. Anything that's European is already better than Asia, and it's wrong. This mentality is wrong. There are good players, there are good people, good coaches. They're just as good in Europe, just that the European League has been going for a lot longer. So what you get is this round peg, square hole. You have people coming over and they copy and paste, try to do what worked in Europe here, and it doesn't work. It's the good coaches from Europe, and don't get me wrong, there are a lot of good ones. I'm not saying they're not, and I'm not anti-foreigner at all. I'm not. I'm just saying you have to do your due diligence and make sure that they're flexible in their approach and understand what's happening. Too many come over and they'll just say, "Oh, A League's crap. Australian players are shit." So, well, hang on, you're a coach. That's your job to make them better.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So
you need them here.
Anyone can play that card and just go, "Yeah, they're crap." Well, compared to what Man United, all right, give us that much money and give us that many years of being in a professional environment, and we'll see.
And no transfer restriction.
And I mean. That's, as you can see, a big bugbear of mine as an Australian coach. But,
absolutely.
No, it's good.
We had we had who was it? We had Branko on. We had Branko on the other week, and he was saying, he believes the same sort of thing. Like obviously the Australian coaches need to be giving more more opportunities, and obviously, the training and obviously all that sort of stuff needs to be better and everything else. He goes, he would love to see more top-notch coaches.
I'm here.
You'll come here. He goes, we need the international coaches here, but we need as you said, we need the Australian coaches under them to learn from these top-notch coaches.
They've got to be here for the right reason.
100%. And that's
they've got to be here for the right reason, and the right reason for them to come here is not to win trophies.
And that's the biggest thing. It's what the clubs need to be saying in their interviews is, if you're here to win trophies, that's we need you here to develop. That's the main reason why we're signing you.
Yeah.
Your history speaks for itself. You've won Champions Leagues, you've won whatever's, titles wherever around the world. We need you to bring that to us and train our next generation of coaches.
Yeah.
We had Damien Zane on last week.
Yeah,
three titles at Edgeworth. Can't be doing much more. Like in Newcastle, he's done everything he can. How isn't he getting to go somewhere? You know what I mean?
But this is the next point: is you don't have to be a horse to be a jockey, right? And I think Rigo Saki said that years ago. And it's like, just because you haven't played for the Socceroos or won a Ballon d'Or, it doesn't mean just because you've done that, it doesn't mean you can coach.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And you'll find some of the best coaches were some of the worst players or not as good players, because they've had to figure out ways to stay in the game and use their brain. Do you know what I mean? Not just their God-given talent. Right. So already they're good thinkers.
Yep.
And,
Mourinho
who's the most successful coach in the world? Who's won the most trophies?
Yeah.
Right. Who?
Mourinho. Mourinho's a prime example.
Where did he play?
He was a below average footballer that I think only made like 3 or 4 professional appearances.
Yeah, played next to nothing.
Played next to nothing.
What about Jurgen Klopp?
Yeah,
Klopp was the same.
Same thing.
Okay, so all right, and then even the top player, Pep Guardiola. Okay, but even he will admit he couldn't coach in lower divisions because he wouldn't have the quality of players to work with. And I think when you get those coaches who've cut their teeth in tough divisions, their flexibility is huge. Like the range that they can coach, you learn so much more on how to handle different situations and coach a whole range of players.
And there's plenty out there,
there is, mate. There's so many good coaches in the NPL, and I hope that promotion relegation happens sooner rather than later, so that people can see that, because they'll be getting promoted, and they'll stay there because there's so many good coaches in the NPL.
Yeah, I think again, I'm a Liverpool fan, but even I remember going back to watching interviews of even when Rafa went to Napoli and his time at Liverpool. Again, he wasn't crash hot, everything else, but he said it in many times in his interviews. He goes, "I would not be here if it wasn't for what I've learned from exceptional coaches." You know what I mean? Like he goes, the 2005 Champions League win, I wouldn't accept that on my own bat. You know what I mean? I thank everyone who's coached me and who I've been with as assistant coaches, etc. He's very, he's very thankful for what he's got, knowing that he's not going to put his hand up and go, "It was me." You know what I mean? Like it's all on my head. I got the brains and everything else. You know what I mean? Like he is very thankful for every coach he's coached under.
Another manager in sort of a similar position to that would have been Arsene Wenger when he took over at Arsenal.
Yeah,
nobody knew who he was because he was coming from Japan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing.
He came in and he basically rebuilt Arsenal's entire youth system from the ground up.
Correct.
And the level of professionalism he brought.
Yeah, professionalism, the change of diet, everything. This beers before and after every game culture.
But don't forget, the J League is a top league.
Absolutely.
It's a top league as well. So but 100%. He's come in and lasted. How long did he last? 20
odd years of them.
Yeah,
easily.
I mean, I don't like Arsenal because I'm a Spurs supporter, but I'll let you have that one because it's a good point. Right?
but how many players back in those days, your Ryan Giggs and so forth, even in some of the interviews, stating that, like when I first started, it was years after in the change rooms and frigging on the piss every night and clubbing and everything else.
The game's changed a lot. It has changed a lot, and it's it's hard to continue to change, especially in Australia, because it's like, oh, we've just changed. It's like, yeah, you got to keep changing, keep being better, not just rest on the laurels, which seems to happen a lot. But but even Alex Ferguson, like, was he one of the top players? I know he represented Scotland, did well, but he wasn't a top player, and he lasted at Man United for how long and made that club into a dynasty. But people also don't remember, or maybe they forget, that he almost got sacked in his third year.
Yeah, I was going to say, early days,
Mate, he was one game away from being sacked.
100%.
And it just...
They weren't a top club when he took the reins.
Oh, absolutely not.
No.
He built them into a top club.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything they are is because of him. Like, it's the biggest thing, and you can sit there and watch them now go around, and Christ, you nearly have a heart attack. What the managers since him now have done, and the owners, and it's just gone to shit now. But at the same time,
it also reaffirms the fact that, even in the Premier League, that money isn't always everything.
Correct. It all comes down to the talent and coaching staff. And was it I think there's an Aussie scout or something like that. I think he's at he was at Liverpool for a little bit. I can't remember his now, but he's the amount of people that he brings in, like the talent that he finds. Again, it's just amazing to see that there's an Aussie. I can't remember his name over there. Doing that.
Wenger was one of the biggest for that, wasn't he? He wouldn't, and I think that's a big issue in football. I don't know what the word is, whether it's elitist or not, but if you're from a country that's not in the top 10, you're frowned upon, And I think Wenger was one of the ones. God knows, was some of the countries or places where he was finding players like gems, just being open to that, But I think that's an Aussie thing as well, If you had a Brazilian passport, early days in the A League, mate, it was worth gold.
Oh yeah.
Just because you're from Brazil, it's like, okay. But
Mario Jardel, prime example.
Well, a good player, maybe just at that time.
He was, not when we had him.
Easy, mate.
But he had a Brazilian passport.
Constantine found him on YouTube, mate. Relax. YouTube was only starting now, but
again, it's just having that objective view when you do your recruitment, and it doesn't matter where they're from, and they can be anywhere. I mean, there's so many good players. Like I said, I keep getting back to it in Asia, mate, that will never get a look in because they're from Asia.
Yeah.
That's the sad reality.
That's it. I'm sure if you spoke to Tags and a few other guys over there, Neil's over there now, and shit like that.
Antonis,
there's plenty of them over there, and I'm sure if you spoke to them and said, what's it like, mate, they'd be going, oh wow,
not coming home.
Well, not coming home, but like just the players, that they're playing with, and obviously they're learning from, and everything. It's just, I just imagine it'd be mind blowing, like. But
it's so much more competitive, and that's the thing. Players know that if they don't do well, they get relegated, and then that's a huge chunk of their salary gone. If they're playing in the division below, we've got it too easy here. Like, where's the pressure?
Exactly. I think
even if the player knows once he's made the A League, he knows he'll get another contract somewhere. He'll be recycled.
Yeah.
Because and then how many coaches are willing to give and do the recruitment even in the MPL? Because there's good players there.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, 100%.
How many times do we speak about that? As Jets fans, obviously, your Kane Shepherds and
Matty Miller, prime example.
Yeah, Boyutzes and stuff like that, who have started got their chance, and then haven't cut it. But again, as a lot of past people we've had on here, the jump is just way too big. The gap is massive.
Yeah. But there are players, and get back to the pride. That was the environment I tried to create with the boys. There, I was like, listen. You can't train 3 nights a week and expect to make it. Not going to happen. You need to train 4 or 5 times plus gym. You've got to be willing to do it. And you know what? There's boys out there. If they know there's some, it's unfortunately that what they know now. Once they get to the senior level, there's very slim pickings or very slim chance of them making it into the A League because teams won't look. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's too late. But at the younger age groups, they will look at them. You know what I mean? In those academy age groups.
Yeah. No,
but if there was an inkling, that there was still, if they knew that clubs were still looking in the NPL level, I think you would see players train a lot more because that's what it was like back when I was before I was at the Strikers.
Yeah,
Cozzy would recruit from lower league, like NPL, state league. It was back then.
Yeah,
before it, So because you knew that, you knew you had a chance or there was an opportunity.
Yeah, it was like when I remember playing, even state league back for Adamstown and so forth back in the early, nearly a decade ago. But even some of the coaches I had back then, were just, they were so determined to get the best out of their players. Like I remember
Yeah.
one of my old coaches, he'd be like, right, training's at 6:30, and I mean 6:30, we're running. Not 6:30 be here, 6:30 we're running.
Yeah.
But I'll be here from 4 p.m.
Yeah.
If you guys want to come down and you want to get in some early practice and you just want to start and shooting drills, basic stuff, just while you're waiting, finesse stuff and everything else. Like he would do it. Why? Because he wanted the best out of his players, and it showed.
I had the worst coach in the world. My old man.
Your old man.
My old man. For the most of my footballing career, my old man was my coach.
Not always the best.
And that's worse than. It's worse being his son and playing under him than what it is being anybody else, because you get drilled harder.
Yeah, well, that's exactly.
You don't get away with the liberties. You get shouted at twice as much.
No, well, the last
but again,
one...
it turned me into a better player.
Did you boys see that meme that was out a while ago? It was about. I'll try and find it quickly. This guy already. He said, one time I was late to practice and my coach made me run laps. He said, my dad was the coach and he drove me to practice.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Well, I've only got one for you. We were sort of talking about it off air the other day, and we've obviously Johnson taking charge.
James,
taking charge, and the whole concept of the what do you want to call them, the elite 2006, the golden generation, or all these players coming in and jumping on the bandwagon now. What are your thoughts, obviously, with Johnson? I believe he's what we've needed for a while. I think he's going to definitely do great things for Australian football. Obviously, his first order is obviously getting the women the World Cup, which is what we need. We need, getting a male. No, exactly right. No, getting a male World Cup, we can virtually cut our losses.
Yeah, that'll never happen.
We just don't have the facilities. We don't have the room.
It's not even that. It's not even that.
I think it's a little bit more political than just.
No, it comes down to the TV rights. They will not bring it out here because it forces the 90% of Europe that will get up to watch it.
Yeah,
it puts them out. We'll put out little Australia who don't have as big a following in their time zone. We'll make them get up at 3 a.m. to watch it.
Korea, it was almost the same. But what do you feel? What do you feel he needs to bring?
I think, mate, if you look, again, I don't care who the person is, what they've done before, status-wise. I think you need to look at the person's CV and their experiences. And I think James fits that bill perfectly for the FFA CEO. I mean, lawyer as a trade, has played the game. He's worked in AFC, FIFA, Melbourne City. What are they called? Manchester City Group. He's been around, mate. And I think if you look at his history, one of his first jobs was either the Malaysian or the Indonesian elections. I can't remember now, when he was working at AFC, and he had to fix that or look after that, And I think the military were almost involved. So the guy's been through hell, he's been in those tough situations and he's managed them well. And he has walked into a shitstorm. Let's not keep putting Band-Aids over Band-Aids.
Absolutely.
I mean, this needs to be ripped off and just rebuilt. And I think he is the person to do it. He just needs time, and people just need to back off and stop, keep giving, it's the same 2 cents that keeps being said. Like, we know youth development, we know it needs to get better. He knows this. You know what I mean? So I think people need to calm down, let him do his job, because it's going to take time.
Yeah.
But I would rather it take time and be done properly than go through another A League caper, which wasn't done properly. We didn't even listen to a $400,000 Crawford report that was done from the PFA, from the NSL, on how to make it better. We just, ignored that and then just built a league based on by a few people, what they thought, for maybe there was agendas, maybe there wasn't, but it wasn't done properly, because if it was, we wouldn't be in this situation. And even when the shit hits the fan, you still survive. You still manage your way through it if it was built properly. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't built progressively so that we could get to a promotion relegation and the leagues below. I mean, you tell me how many times your state league's been renamed.
Yeah.
Well, I think Queensland's been 4 or 5 times now, and it's the same. Let's just call it another name. Like,
it's not
changing anything, So he is the right man, in my opinion. Like, he really is, and he's an intelligent guy. And I say that because I know him. But I wouldn't put my name to someone who I didn't believe in, even if I knew him. So he is the right person. We just need to give him time and just back off a little bit. Like, the more vocal everyone gets now, it's unnecessary noise. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's probably muddying the waters, if anything.
Yeah, if anything, back off. Give him the space that he needs to work to be able to get the job done.
And that's where those.
Yeah, he's not. He knows what he's doing. Like, look where he's been.
He doesn't need.
It's obvious by the way. It's obvious by the way. I watched an interview with him that went for about an hour, and they had Graham Arnold on as well, and just listening to what he was saying and how he was saying it and the plans that he's got. He's calm, cool, and collected. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he doesn't need to go.
Oh, look, he's probably screaming in a pillow when he gets home at night because what he's got to go through. But
yeah. But he knows what needs to happen. He's got plans of action. He knows what needs to happen in the back end to make sure that we get the right. Not even fix that we get the right solution.
Would not have accepted the job if he didn't know.
And he's not. If you know James, he's not ego driven. And for me, that's the best person. Like, it's not about you; it's about the game. And that's the same as coaching or playing. It's being the best version or doing the best job. It's not about sitting there telling everyone how good you are and what you do. So he's in it for the right reasons, which is a huge plus for me.
Absolutely, and as I said, hopefully, good luck to him, and hopefully he does change, obviously, the Australian game for the better. And when he is gone or whatever it is, everyone can follow on with that, and we can obviously get where we should be as a nation. And the football becomes obviously the number one sport in Australia, which it still isn't. And in my opinion, obviously, rugby league media and everything else is still. Again, we've seen it today. We haven't seen much about the A League starting, progressing. The NRL's just come up with.
But I think if you jump in that boat, you'll always be down the bottom, won't you? Like, if you, it's a rugby and AFL boat. Like, let's beat around the bush, and we're in it. Get out, build your own boat, and you've got the numbers, mate. You'll kill the other other codes.
Absolutely agree with you, mate. Absolutely.
But we're very good at attacking ourselves in Australia, aren't we?
That's exactly it, mate.
If we could all just be supportive and help each other get better, and we know it's tough. Like, it's easy to abuse and criticize. We know it's tough. We just got to help each other make it better.
I totally agree, mate. But we're gonna wrap it up. Obviously, we can't thank you enough for your time. Obviously, on a Friday night. I do have one final question for you. It's very straightforward. What are Karl Dodd's plans? Where do you see your future, mate? Obviously, once the Guam job's done, do you want to tackle another international career job, or do you want to travel overseas somewhere, maybe get a gig in a competition?
I'd like to be in clubland. I think, like, I enjoy my time in international football. I know this isn't going to be forever. Learn a lot, but I want to be in a professional club and coach at the highest level, whatever that is. I'm not going to sit here and say I want to coach Tottenham Hotspur. It'd be nice, but look, I just want to coach at the highest level and test myself. That's my goal.
Absolutely.
I hope he does get the job at Tottenham and do a better job than Mourinho.
We've got a good stadium now, anyway.
Absolutely.
I'll be the first one to admit I'm not Mourinho's biggest fan.
No, neither am I.
See, there's a round peg in a square hole, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How? Yeah. Anyway,
it's because he is who he is. That's why.
Yeah, and now Levy wants him to get success, and he thinks, look at Mourinho's way of getting success.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the joys of being a Spurs supporter.
That's it, mate. Exactly right. Maybe jump on the Newcastle United bandwagon. Throw your hat in there.
No, throw your hat in Birmingham's bandwagon, mate.
Yeah.
Oh, it gets worse and worse every day.
Oh, mate. No, absolutely, mate. We thank you very much for jumping on again at short notice. It's muchly appreciated. I hope everything goes well, obviously, with the birth of your daughter, and hopefully you get back to Guam and get back into, obviously, a bit of football. I'm sure it's pretty lonely times, obviously, not getting much football.
It gets a bit, you want to get your hands dirty again. But listen, guys, absolute pleasure, and enjoy the chat, so anytime.
Nah, too easy, mate. Muchly appreciated.
Very much appreciated.
All right, enjoy your weekend, guys.
Same to you, mate. Take it easy.
See you guys.
See you, mate. There we have it. Good insight Yeah, mate. Oh.
Stream can't hear him, but we can.
Stream can't hear him, but we can. Yeah, now you can start abusing. Yeah, no, muchly. Obviously, thanks to everyone in the chat who did jump on and say g'day. Very good insight into Guam football and obviously his thoughts on Australian football in general. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to everyone who joined us for the show. It was muchly appreciated. Hope you guys got a bit of an insight into international football, obviously from an international coach. What life's like, obviously coaching maybe not at the elite level of international football, and what it's like, you know, sort of scraping at the lower.
But in my opinion, it's the more important part of football.
Absolutely, 100%. 100%. As you said, it's you know, even Asia, you know, in general, the whole idea of it. We were there. We were in the Oceania side of things, or whatever it is. We've come to Asia,
the
AFC now, and you know, Australia was that team, you know, beating teams by 20 odd goals or whatever it was. But again, what was it achieving? Nothing. You know, for us, it was achieving nothing for us. Archie Thompson can go down as one of the best international goal scorers in world football. God. 15 odd goals, whatever the hell it was. But what did he do other than that? Nothing. You know, like he couldn't cut it other than that. But anyway, guys, we are going to wrap it up there for the stream. We do muchly appreciate you guys for jumping on. If you guys haven't already, make sure you jump into the giveaway. Thanks to our major sponsor, Gabriel Mar Optometrist. They have donated a $200 pair of sunglasses to give away. All you have to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the Facebook page, and tag 2 of your friends down below. Very simple, and you could go in the draw to win that pair of glasses. What was I going to say? Monday night, we have been lucky enough to secure an hour or so with Tara Andrews, current Newcastle Jet, obviously Matilda, played in the what is it, the W League, I think it was.
The W League, but it's the American W League. The American
W League, MVP, most valuable player, top Golden Boot winner. Thanks to Tara for obviously giving us a bit of time on Monday night, so be sure to tune in for that. It will be a very good insight, obviously. Even women's football is the main one there.
Yep.
We want to talk about. We don't.
I've been up you to get a female footballer on this show.
Man, it's hard, man. It's hard. You have no idea how much I try and get onto Instagram or Facebook and just.
I know you do all the tracking down.
Who doesn't want it?
I do all the behind the scenes.
Who wants to add an ugly mug like mine or whatever to Facebook and then get bombarded? Hey, do you want to come on a podcast? Don't worry, I've been trying. So yeah, it'd be good to get her on, obviously, to have a chat, obviously, about Newcastle, women's football in general, from the Matildas down to, obviously, the WMPL, which he's currently playing for Manly in Sydney. Obviously, once it gets back up and running. So yeah, be sure to tune in for that, guys. It's muchly appreciated. We do thank you for, as I said, tuning in with us for the hour and a bit that we've been here. Again, if you guys know anyone in the football world or anything like that, you know, you can chatting to and maybe get them on, we'd love to hear that. Fling the details. That's it. And yeah, we'll have anyone on. We'll have a quick chat.
You can go and chase up Ali Abbas now.
Ali Abbas, yeah.
He jumped into the Facebook chat.
Ali was in here before. I think I've seen Laurie before as well. He was in there for a couple of minutes as well, which he always is. So yeah, as I say, guys, if you know anyone, feel free, hit them up, and we'll have them on. Love to have a chat with them. So until next time, we'll catch you later. And as always, we hate Coast Scum. See you guys. You there, mate?